Hello and welcome to Indian PSU. I am Vivek Awasthi and you are watching Straight Talk. Today we will discuss the indications from the sources of Finance Ministry who have said that 7 out of 12 public sector banks would be privatized. Their pros and cons. To discuss this, we have with us Mr. T.D. Franco, former National Secretary of All India Bank Officers Confederation, Srinath Indusudan, State Secretary, All India Bank Officers Confederation, Kerala chapter, and noted senior journalist, Mr. Siddharth Zarabi. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank
I'll
you.
start with
Thank
Mr.
you.
Franco. Mr. Franco, you've been in this field for decades and decades together. What do you make out of this announcement by the sources of Finance Ministry who have not still come on record even after more than 36 hours have passed since this information has trickled down? What is your take on this?
Number one, this is not a surprise. The first NDA government, when Mr. Yashwant Sinha was the finance minister, in 2001, they brought a bill to the parliament suggesting to reduce the shareholding in public sector banks to 33%. Somehow there was a strong opposition from the trade unions. They went on a strike and the left parties supported it, and in the parliament it was referred to the parliament standing committee and it never saw the light of the day. Subsequently, after this government came to power in 2014, they had the Gyan Sangam at Pune, in which the Prime Minister and the then Finance Minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley, attended, where all the PSU, public sector bank chairman, MDs were there. There they announced a roadmap for future in which Mr. P.J. Naik committee's recommendation was accepted. And P.J. Naik committee recommendation is that the shareholding should be reduced to 50% and thus create a banks board bureau, then convert it into a bank investment company and transfer all the shares of government to that company, and then you can privatize. So only thing now needed is a amendment to the Banking Acquisition and Transfer Act, which is the Nationalization Act, which has to be done to the Parliament. So probably they are drafting the bill, or their bill is already ready. It is a question of time when they will introduce it in the Parliament session, next Parliament session, and they will get it done. When in spite of so much of opposition, when they did that merger, that time itself I said that it is a step towards privatization. And that step is coming true now. It's not at all a surprise, but whether it is a right step is a big question. The public sector banks have contributed a lot for the development of this country. And once you privatize the public sector banks and reduce the number to say 3 or 4, those big banks will be catering only to the big people. In addition, the big private banks like ICICI, HDFC, they will also cater to the big people. The common man will be left with payment banks, small banks, and fintech companies who will be, or the non-banking financial companies, which can charge up to 24% interest. So what you get as small loans like education loan, agriculture loans, MSME loans, even housing loans, all that will be becoming very costlier, and the common man of the country is going to suffer. So it is time that we oppose it tooth and nail and put an end to this discussion, and this bill should not come to the parliament at all. That is my appeal.
Srinath, what do you make out of this unofficial, I would say, announcement as no senior person from the Finance Ministry has come on record, which includes our Finance Minister also. What is your first initial reaction to it?
See, Vivekji, I am also not surprised, or rather, I was perceiving this thing from the last few years when the policy decisions of government was stressing on merging the banks, because they wanted to make it a bigger bank and then slowly privatize all these public sector banks. Because see, the present government, whether the biggest question is whether the present government is subscribing a welfare state or a police state. See, if you are subscribing a welfare state, then only you need to think about the welfare of the people. Now our Pradhana Mantri Modi ji has announced Atmanirbhar Bharat. Privatization is an antithesis to Atmanirbhar Bharat, because you cannot become Atmanirbhar by privatizing the public sector banks. Public sector banks have always contributed to the growth of the nation and the economy. Public sector bank, for that matter, any public sector enterprise, it has supported the economy of the country when the country was struggling to come out of the clutches of British Raj, when the economy was downtrodden. It was the public sector banks from 1969. They have played a major role in giving credit to the agriculturists, credit to the minor entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, SHGs, everywhere. See, this is not, I am not speaking based on emotions. I am speaking on the basis of data. You see, any records or cross-sectional analysis of the data proves that the public sector bank has contributed maximum to the microcredit, micro, small and medium enterprises, public sector, priority sector lending, agriculture. Everywhere, the lending has been undertaken by public sector banks only.
Mr. Zarabi, what would you like to say after hearing these two gentlemen from the banking fraternity?
Well, thank you, Vivek, for having me on the show. And it is an interesting topic that you have chosen to debate. And like you said, this is still a source-based story. However, we are debating it because there is some background to what is being discussed as far as India's banking system is concerned. I want to take our viewers into discussing a couple of issues that have come up before this story and the background really. The first point, a larger question that we should focus on is, does India need so many public sector banks or even so many private sector banks? Now, when you try and answer that question, I feel the question should be rephrased to say, how many banks and banking institutions does our country need? If you look at it on a population and per capita basis, you will find that a population that is second only to China and perhaps is likely to surpass China in the near future, we find that on a per capita basis, the number of banks is not too many. Now, this is not that great a comparison because what is really important is how many people within our economy need access to banking services. The answer to that should be that virtually everyone who is an adult and otherwise should have access to a bank account. There is no bar on having a bank account even for a newborn. It will only be account in guardianship. When we try and find answers to this question, we realize that the number of banks is not the issue. The issue is the availability and access to services. It does not matter for an average customer whether he has 10 banks to choose from. What matters for an average banking customer is who is paying a better interest rate on deposits. So I think the debate should be framed on that one point: availability of services, banking access, and the facilities that you get. And I gave you just one example as, for example, in today's scenario where interest rates are falling, most subscribers in this country would like to have an account, savings or a term deposit account with any banking institution which provides the highest interest. Now comes the second point, and I'll just take a couple of minutes, Vivek, to answer this. It will be slightly long, so please bear with me. The second question is, if every customer wants to chase the highest interest rate, and that is his right completely, the second question is, what about the safety of the institutions? In the past, you have seen that those banks, including not just the scheduled banks, But even cooperative banks, and we know what is happening in Maharashtra, for example, in this regard. When it comes to these institutions, what matters more to a customer in our country? Safety. Now, you know what happened with Yes Bank. That is the most recent example, or PMC in Maharashtra. What is most important, and my activists, the activists who are on the panel, with due regard and respect to them, I think they will also completely agree with me that what matters in today's scenario of financial volatility is the safety and the financial viability of your bank. Why? Because you are keeping your hard-earned money in that bank, and you don't want a situation that has happened. Yes Bank, our state-owned companies and some private lenders came together and rescued it. But some cooperative banks we have seen, people are in big trouble as a result. And therefore, the third and final point that I would say is that we have already seen phase one of this, where several banks have already been merged. And the total number of banks, which used to be 23, 24 at one point of time, is now lesser. This story claims that a second phase is being put in place, where the word privatization is being used. Now, will privatization happen in the sense that we understand it? I would like to offer a counter. It is my understanding, Vivek, and we have reported on these stories and covered it for long, that as far as the NDA government is concerned, I do not think that they have ever said on record that they will reduce the shareholding of the government of India in any banking institution below 51%. The last statement that I remember on record in Parliament, and it is quite some time back, of course, situation could change, as Mr. Thomas Franco is saying, if the government decides to bring in a new bill, because this will require a proper amendment to the existing law. You can perhaps do it by ordinance as well. However, the last on record statement in Parliament from the Finance Ministry, if memory serves me right, was that the shareholding of the government of India, which is essentially the Rashtrapati, will not reduce below 51%. And therefore, my final summary point to this first question of yours is, I personally do not think that there is any issue in the number of banks. Bigger banks bring in efficiencies. There are also issues that sometimes local banks, smaller banks, are able to provide more local customer-friendly services. However, in an environment where the total number of bank branches is actually shrinking, where ATM and digital usage is going up, I think technology is changing that, and therefore we should not be too worried about the total number of banks. What we should be, as citizens of this country, be very worried about is the improvement in operational efficiencies and true independence to the banking boards to run their operations. And in that, I think just as so much importance is given on getting men of and women of very high probity, of very high integrity in constitutional positions, in election commission, for example, or C&AG, or the manner in which, judicial appointments focus on integrity, ethics, track record of the person. I think the biggest emphasis as citizens should be that our banks and those state-owned banks must be run by people of the highest caliber, quality, honesty, and integrity. And let me make one more final point. It is not as if only public sector banks have problems. Without taking names, as we discuss this, there is a news item that has emerged just overnight of one of the largest private sector lenders firing as many as 6 senior executives for what they believe is an impropriety. So, let us not blame our state-owned banks, I think the larger issue is our money should be safe and our money should get higher interest rates, especially for the saving class, for the retired, for the low income, part of our society, Vivek.
Mr. Thomas, how do you react to it?
Mr. Siddharth has really brought out a few dimensions of what is happening in the banking industry. Number one, the branch network, the number of banks he was talking about. I would like to quote that the branch network, when we compare with the other countries, our branch network is much low. Average branch per population in our country is 11,000. 11,000 population has one bank branch. Whereas even if you look at the nearby countries like Sri Lanka or even Bangladesh and all the developed countries, the average branch per population is 5,000. In fact, under the lead bank scheme, the government of India had asked the banks that they should open one branch per 5,000 population. But now they have changed the norms. Instead of a branch, they say that it can be a touch point. What is this touch point? A business correspondent. We have 560,000 business correspondents who are unemployed youth without any assured job. They are on a contract with the bank and they run a customer service point. They are called the touch points. So that is not really, they cannot give a loan. So that real banking service is not taking place there. So we require more number of banks in this country and we require also more number of branches. Number two, the deposit interest rate. There was a time the banks were paying 14%, 15% on fixed deposit. Today it has come to maximum interest rate even for a pensioner will be only 6.5%. So that is not adequate. And a country like ours, it is depending on household deposits. Majority of the deposits are from household deposits, which is not only kept for safety, but also with a hope that they will be able to earn some income out of it. But we keep on reducing the rate because RBI reduces the repo rate and the banks are asked to lend at a cheaper rate. Who is getting the cheaper interest rate? It is the corporates who are getting cheaper interest rate. For that, the interest rate on deposit is going down. That is not good on a long run. That will create problems for the country. There will be a stage, people will take out the money, especially now, along with this privatization talk, there is also a bill, that FRDI bill, which was opposed by us. In fact, as a General Secretary of All India Bank Officers Confederation, I appeared before the Parliament Standing Committee and opposed that bill, made a presentation. Finally, that bill was withdrawn. Now there is already a discussion going on. That bill is once again coming in the revised name called the FSDR bill. So that faith in the banking system will go. Number three, the way the government and the RBI are handling the banks. Sir rightly pointed about the Yes Bank fiasco. It was totally mismanaged. It was a big people's bank. Minimum deposit was 10,000. That bank has been rescued by pumping in money from State Bank of India. And not this time, normally there has been many cases like the Global Trust Bank, Centurion Bank, where the other banks were taking over those banks which were under crisis. Now we are not taking over. State Bank has become only an investor and it is promoting its own competitor. That is not good for the country. And in the case of PMC Bank, the Punjab Maharashtra Cooperative Bank, even now those depositors are suffering. Why you are not using the same norm for rescuing PMC Bank? In the last 2 months, 2 cooperative banks have been liquidated. Depositors are not getting full money. 26 banks are under moratorium under the control of Reserve Bank. Reserve Bank is not taking care of those depositors. But only when it is a private bank, you are intervening. Number 4 is this shareholding. Mr. Siddharth was talking about. Government has not told that they will reduce the shareholding to below 51%. As I told you, 33% was the bill introduced by Mr. Yashwant Sinha as Finance Minister. Secondly, the PJ Nayak committee in Narasimham committee, they have all recommended that it should be brought down below 51%. So though they have not now said openly, they have already prepared a roadmap to reduce the shareholding below 51%, for which they require a parliament amendment. Then coming to the digital technology, yes, digital technology, all the banks are using, especially state banks, that is the public sector banks are adapting those technologies. But today in our country, even now 26% of the population is illiterate. Only 10% of the people can read and write English. And all those technology which we are giving, whether it's ATM card or it's a mobile banking or the phone banking, all that, it is in the English language which people cannot use. I have seen in Bihar, some agents bringing 50, 60 ATM cards and using it in the ATM card because the ordinary people who have those accounts, they cannot operate the ATM. So in a country like ours, yes, you require technology. You bring technology which is people-friendly. There is voice-based technology which is little costly that you are not making available. That has to be looked up. Lastly, the independence of the boards which he was talking about. Today in the public sector banks, after 2014, there is no employee director, there is no officer director, which is mandatory as per the Banking Regulation Act. I filed a case in 2017 at the Delhi High Court. Delhi High Court gave a ruling to the government that it should be they should be appointed immediately. Till now, it has not been done. The government is putting it on hold. So there is no watchdog role by board of directors. Secondly, the independent directors, who are these people? They are being chosen as political favorites, and they are only yes men. We saw in the case of merger, as well as in the associate bank merger of the 5 associate banks and the Bharatiya Mahila Bank with State Bank of India, then Chairman Mrs. Arundhati Bhattacharya made a statement that we don't require a merger. Within 3 months, the board passes a resolution allowing merger. So there is no independent character of today this board of directors. In fact, what I would propose, now the RBI has put up a draft paper on governance in public the banking sector in India, in which they are talking about board of directors. What I would propose, and I have put it in writing also, is that we should have depositors directors. Today, these banks are not really owned by the government or private. Even the private sector bank, they are dependent on the depositors' money. It is that money they are using for giving loan. So the depositors should have a right to appoint set director. There should be a 1 or 2 directors elected from the depositors to represent their rights. Then only they will ensure that the deposit rate will not go down. So today, in the larger interest of the country, we require more banks, more branches, and more public sector lending, especially small loans. So after the merger, State Bank of India last year itself has reduced the number of staff by 14,000. Number of branches have been reduced by more than 1,000 branches have been merged. So that is not good for the country, and that is why I feel that it is not an issue of trade unions. This is for the common man to understand. Common man is going to be affected because the small loans will disappear completely in the banking sector, and the ordinary people will become bankrupt when you are not getting subsidized credit, lower interest rate credit.
Well pointed out these facts. Now I'll go to Srinath, who's on the verge of getting irritated, and I think he'll run away if I don't go to him now. So Srinath, now I want to ask you one question straight away. That the merger of banks, which happened earlier, did it not lead to job loss? Number one, and number two, in this country where politicians raise hue and cry on any given small or big matter, no one till date, no big leader, no Rahul Gandhi, no one, who talk of everything have said a single word about privatization of banks and other PSUs. What do you say on this?
See, Vivekji, actually, Thomas Franco sir has definitely touched all the points. So I would like to poach into some other areas where he has not gone. See, the first question is whether the mergers have led to loss of job. Definitely, the mergers will be leading to the loss of job because, see, for example, in one panchayat, there are two banks. In that particular panchayat, the people will be depending for loans and deposits and all the banking transactions in these two banks. And if these are two public sector banks, and if these two public sector banks are being merged into one, that two banks will be rationalized to form one branch. So that one branch, the paraphernalia won't be increasing, the staffs won't be increasing, they will be cutting short the staff, they will not be transferring the license to some other panchayat, and they will not be going to bank the unbanked areas. Rather, they are concentrating on rationalization. They are concentrating on decreasing the expenditure, establishment cost. For example, the rent of the premises, electricity bill, the salary for these people. See, that is the major motivation behind the privatization and mergers. And regarding the merger, there is one more point. See, now the banks, the Indian banks are not having a stable background or a stable balance sheet. If the banks are getting bigger, then only they can poach into the other areas, the international market. See, mergers, why we are making big banks? The most fantastic thing what I would like to point out is after the SBI merger, the SBI has started giving funds for weapon manufacturing, for manufacturing grenades. So they want to poach into the international market. They want to lend all these nonsense things. So they want some bigger banks with huge base. Now the other second thing is regarding the privatization. Why the banks are being privatized? Simple question, and the simple answer is the government needs money. From the last 6 years, due to the mismanagement, the government has lost a lot of funds. After the GST, it was not properly implemented. Demonetization was the biggest failure, biggest blunder in the history of banking. And after all these policy paralysis, the central government is not having any revenue. So they want to disinvest from these banks, and they want to take the money out. That is a simple equation. They are not bothered about how the depositors will be reacting, how the banks will be responding, how the economy will be reacting. They are not bothered. They just want the money. And now the most important question I would like to stress upon. See, whether you can compare the efficiency of private sector banks and public sector banks, whether you can really say that mess in banking is due to ownership. No, the mess in banking is beyond ownership. When we realize that particular fact, we will come to a conclusion that privatization will be a blunder. Now, privatization policy is brought into, and the reason for this debate itself is in that privatization policy, they are identifying some strategic sectors, and they have included banking in the strategic sector. There is no question. See, when we say that now, till now, the government has not told anything about privatization, the fact is, in the privatization policy, they have identified the strategic sectors for privatization, and banking is one among the strategic sectors. So definitely, today or tomorrow, we are facing the privatization. Telling about the private banks, just see how many private banks have failed. I am just telling from the nationalization period. In 1969, when the banks were nationalized, on that particular year itself, one private bank has failed, Bank of Bihar. It was merged into State Bank of India. From that period, National Bank of Lahore, 1970, Belgaum Bank, 1976. List is very huge.
Huge list.
In 2020, you see 2020, Yes Bank has failed, bailed out by SBI. In 2008, Centurion Bank of Punjab, bailed out by SDFC. Lord Krishna Bank by Centurion Bank of Punjab. See, every time the private ownership or the public ownership, as Siddharth sir has rightly pointed out, it is based on the honesty and integrity of the people who are running the show. If ICICI Bank had a better chairman who was honest and who was having an integrity other than Mrs. Chandra Kachar, then ICICI Bank would not have turned into this thing. Public sector bank, the public sector bank has contributed to the economic growth of the country. I have already touched upon that particular point. Then why they want public sector banks to be privatized? They are saying that public sector bank is not bringing profit. Basic agenda behind banking is to take deposit, you lend. Now our Franco sir has already told that for a deposit, you are getting only 6% interest. So what is the interest rate for loans? Now you will be getting loans for 8.5 to 12%. So where is the margin of 3 to 4% going? See, in public sector banks, they are having around 85 lakh crore deposits, and the advances is around 100 lakh crore. So you see, the major portion of the advances which is lended by the public sector bank comes from the people only. We are taking the deposits from the people and we are lending it. But what is private sector banks mean? Private sector banks are doing the same thing. They are not coming with any capital for lending. They are taking these deposits. So if a private sector bank fails, it is the onus of the say government to bail it out. That is the first thing and the major thing. And now, what is the reason why public sector bank is not lending profit, not lending profit? See, public sector bank is chosen for Aadhaar seeding. It is chosen for DBT, account opening, Jan Dhan, and numerous policies, Pradhan Mantri, several yojanas. So when the public sector bank is concentrating on all these sort of things, there we will actually land up. We will not be concentrating in lending. We will not be concentrating in fetching profit. We are implementing the social security schemes only, but private banks are not doing it and they are mending profit. This is the reason why public sector bank is not having.
Yeah.
Yes.
Point well taken. Point well taken. We are running short of time now. I would like to go to Mr. Zarabi for one last question. Mr. Zarabi, could you just, give your views on what these two bankers have said and what do you make out of it?
Well, I just want to focus on the topic that you have said, and just to give a example for our viewers, China, and why I am mentioning China is because purely from a demographic perspective, they are a much larger economy than ours, and therefore their need of banking and banks in the country and like institutions. If you were to compare that number for India, we have far lesser. Now, let us come back to the topic that you have chosen for the debate. In 2017, if memory serves me right, 2017, we had roughly 27 banks. Then 10 public sector banks got merged into another round of mergers and privatization. Now, what are in simple terms, why is the government, if at all it is considering this, why is it doing it? Please understand that one of the key benefits of doing a merger in the banking sense is that once you have a bigger capital base, basically the capital base of two banks comes together, and that reduces the pressure on the government as the shareholder and owner to recapitalize the bank. We have seen in the last 5-6 years, there have been 2-3 significant rounds of recapitalization, but that is not enough. Why is it not enough? If we try and keep it very simple, because the level of bad debt is very high. In some cases, it is at the highest ever that those particular institutions have seen, and a higher capital base also allows this institution to lend more. Now, what could the disadvantages be? The disadvantages, Mr. Franco has clearly highlighted. But one of the key issues, Vivek, that I know from practical reporting experience that comes up is HR issues. HR issues, just as we saw in the merger of Air India and Indian Airlines, or we have seen in certain other examples, the HR issues, the staffers' disappointment, because a lot of posts get redundant. One bank cannot have 50 EDs. A merged bank, so when you bring these together, everything will not double. And obviously, cost efficiencies also come into play. In some places, the number of branches will reduce. Although I'm not sure what happened in the Oriental Bank Global Trust Bank scenario, from what I remember, the number of branches only grew, but that is not a strictly comparable example. So in summation, I would say that we need to divorce, or to use a better word, to keep shareholding ownership separate. These are assets. Shareholding is a financial asset and it needs to be preserved. I have absolutely no problem with it. A holding corporation which has ownership kept separate from the actual running of these banks. See, all the issues that both our panelists have explained, and I am not discounting any issue. All these are what I would call operation and maintenance issues. If you keep ownership separate and the owner is not allowed to interfere in the daily operations and maintenance of that entity, things will be better. The Reserve Bank of India is a very powerful institution. Let us acknowledge it. It has done a very good job, but there have been examples where the Reserve Bank of India could have done a better job and done it much earlier. And one last point, for the common man of India, he does not honestly know the difference between a cooperative bank, between a scheduled commercial bank, between a private sector and a public sector bank. What he is concerned about is the safety of his deposits. Now, safety of deposits, as we have seen, there is an implicit trust and faith in government-owned banks, believing that sarkar ka bank hai to ye kabhi doobega nahi. But we know that some sarkari banks, their balance sheets are used to be in such bad shape that had they been private sector entities, they could never have survived. वो बैंक्स इसीलिए केवल खुले रहे और चलते रहे क्योंकि वो सरकार के बैंक्स थे. Now, this is a mindset issue. I believe that separation of ownership and separation of management is a very, very important thing. And forget the past. In the future, our banks will be in a position to offer better interest rates to their depositors only if they earn. एक आखिरी बात जो हमारे सब व्यूअर्स को समझनी चाहिए, और ये बहुत लोग नहीं समझते हैं, इसलिए मैं इसको दोहरा रहा हूं विवेक, for our viewers. For a bank, a deposit is actually a liability because the bank has to lend it, it has to earn some money, and that is the way it can pay interest to the depositor. For a bank, his loan is an asset. It is exactly opposite. In any company, private or government-owned company, in any other business, asset and liabilities are exactly the opposite. So for banks anywhere in the world, any banking institution, lending institution on planet Earth needs to earn to be able to pay its depositors a interest rate. Without interest rate, then there is no point of even putting your money in a bank. You might as well just keep it in cash inside a locker. Why do you put money inside a bank? You can also create a locker in your home. I know for many people, there are difficulties. They have small homes. Many people in rural India do not have those kinds of facilities. But अगर broadly कहा जाए तो 20-30 करोड़ लोग देश में, 40 करोड़ लोग ऐसे हैं जिनके पास अच्छे पक्के मकान हैं. क्या वो अपने घरों में लॉकर नहीं बना सकते हैं लोहे का? Of course they can keep. Why are they not keeping that money in the locker? Because they want to earn interest. And that interest can only be provided by an institution. That is why I say the most important parameter for a consumer to judge his bank is how much interest rate he or she gives, along with safety of that. And for that, we have to recognize that banks have to be made more independent to earn profits. Private sector banks have also shown instances of very bad corruption. In public sector banks, in fact, there are checks and balances, and today there are too many checks and balances on our public sector banks. हालत ये हो गई है that they are now scared of lending. उन पे इतने सवाल, इतनी inquiries, इतने parliament questions, इतने प्रेशर होते हैं कि वो आज की डेट में विवेक वो कह रहे हैं भाई साहब देना ही नहीं है, एंड सीनियर ऑफिसर्स आर सेइंग लेट मी रिटायर इन पीस, मुझे रिटायरमेंट के बाद ना तो सीबीआई के दफ्तर जाना है ना जेल की शक्ल देखनी है. सो द कॉन्फिडेंस ऑफ लेंडिंग and trust can only come through multiple ways: hiring the best and the brightest people in the country, providing them a secure job environment, reducing interference from the owner, creating asking the Reserve Bank of India to expand its regulatory supervision on our banks. And I personally think, I will end this, we do not need so many cooperative banks. We do not need small banks which escape regulation. In fact, I would say that cooperative banks should be clubbed together, and they should be either fully owned by the state government or owned by the state and central government. And as has been done now by legal amendment, the Reserve Bank of India till recently was not even supervising our cooperative banks. Our politicians in states were actually interfering with those banks. And Vivek, you know the entire story of cooperative politics in UP, in Maharashtra, in Karnataka. So, there is far more interference there. That is why we need a radical overhaul of our entire banking system. Ownership, last point, once again I am repeating for the nth time, ownership is the last of our worries.
Very interesting conversation and views from all three of you. I wish I had more time and could have carried on and on and on, but we will continue to further debate on this topic as and when we have time. All of you are available. We'll have one more series on it, I promise you. And till then, thanks for joining Indian PSU.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should have
Thank you.
more series. Thank you.